As the afternoon sun streamed through the large windows of the classroom, Jennifer stood on a stool, carefully hanging the vibrant paintings of her students on the walls. The room was alive with color, each piece telling a story of imagination and creativity. She paused for a moment to admire the display, a smile creeping onto her face as she remembered the laughter and joy that filled her classroom. It had become a sanctuary for her, a place where she could escape the shadows of her past and focus on building a brighter future. Just as she adjusted the last painting, her phone vibrated on the desk, startling her. She stepped down from the stool and hurried over, her heart racing as she unlocked the screen. The message was from Mark, the man who had once held her heart and, ultimately, shattered it. "Hey, Jennifer. Can we meet? I have something important to talk about." Her stomach twisted at the sight of his name. Memories flooded her mind, moments of laughter, love, and the bitter taste of betrayal. She bit her lip, hesitating. Part of her wanted to dismiss him outright, to ignore the message and continue with her day, but another part felt a curious tug. What could he possibly want after all this time? After everything that had happened? With a heavy sigh, she typed a quick response. When and where? In response, he suggested a local cafe that held significance for both of them, the Cozy Corner, where they had shared countless cups of coffee and sweet pastries during the good times. As she prepared for the meeting, Jennifer tried to push her anxiety aside. She chose her outfit carefully, opting for a simple yet elegant dress that made her feel confident. Standing before the mirror, she practiced her smile, but it felt forced. The truth was, she was terrified. Would she be able to face Mark without reliving the pain he had caused her? As she applied a touch of mascara, memories surged back, moments of intimacy intertwined with betrayal. She remembered their first date, the way he had looked at her with those intense blue eyes, promising the world. But she also recalled the heartbreak, the nights spent crying and questioning everything she thought she knew about love. "Get a grip, Jen," she murmured to herself, shaking her head. "You're not that girl anymore." With one last glance in the mirror, she picked up her purse and stepped out of her apartment, her heart racing with each step toward the cafe. The Cozy Corner was bustling with customers when Jennifer arrived. The familiar scent of freshly brewed coffee and baked goods wafted through the air, a comforting reminder of the happy times they had shared. She spotted Mark sitting at a corner table, his back to her, and took a deep breath before walking over. When he turned to face her, she was taken aback. Mark looked older, more rugged. There were lines etched on his face that hadn't been there before. His hair was slightly longer, and he wore a simple gray shirt that accentuated his build. But it was the look in his eyes that struck her the most. There was a sincerity there, a depth that made her heart ache with confusion. "Hi, Jennifer," he said softly, his voice carrying a weight she hadn't expected. "Hi," she replied, forcing a smile as she took a seat across from him. "Thanks for inviting me." "Thank you for coming," he said, looking down at the table for a moment. It was as if he were gathering his thoughts. "I know this is unexpected, and I don't blame you if you're upset with me." She raised an eyebrow, skepticism creeping into her expression. "Upset? That's an understatement, Mark. You hurt me. A lot." "I know," he said, meeting her gaze with an intensity that made her heart race. "But I've changed, Jennifer. I've had a lot of time to think about my mistakes and what I've done to you. I want to make things right." Jennifer crossed her arms, her defenses rising. "And how do I know this isn't just another one of your empty promises?" Mark leaned forward, his expression earnest. "Because I'm not the same person I was. I've spent the last year working on myself. I went to therapy, I've cut ties with the people who were dragging me down, and I've been volunteering at a local shelter. I want to show you that I can be better." She studied his face, searching for any sign of deceit. "And why now?" Why after all this time? I've realized how much I took for granted. Losing you made me see things differently. I want to be a better man, not just for you, but for myself too, he confessed, his voice filled with emotion. A lump formed in her throat as she processed his words. Could it be true? Could he have really changed? The thought terrified her. I don't know if I can trust you again, Mark. Trust is hard to rebuild. I understand, he replied, his tone gentle. Trust has to be earned, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to earn yours again. Just give me a chance to show you. Before she could respond, a familiar voice interrupted their conversation. Well, look who it is. Jennifer turned to see Brian, a local man who had always been quick to gossip. He had a smug look on his face as he leaned against the counter, arms crossed. Didn't think I'd see you two together again. Didn't Mark screw you over enough the last time? A heat rose to Jennifer's cheeks as she felt Mark tense across the table. This isn't your business, Brian, she said, trying to maintain her composure. Oh, but it is, he sneered. Everyone in town remembers the mess he made of you, Jennifer. Are you really going to fall for his charms again? Mark shot Jennifer a pained look, as if he were silently pleading with her to not let Brian's words affect her. This isn't about him, he said, his voice low and firm. Jennifer and I are trying to have a conversation. You should respect that. Brian chuckled, clearly enjoying the drama. Respect? For the guy who cheated? You're kidding me. Just wait until the rest of the town hears about this little reunion. Get lost, Brian, Jennifer snapped, anger flaring in her chest. She turned to Mark, who looked as if he were grappling with his own emotions. I'm sorry about that. I didn't expect. It's fine, he said, though she could see the hurt in his eyes. People will talk. They'll always talk. But that doesn't mean they're right, she added, wishing she could believe her own words. Mark took a deep breath, his eyes steady on hers. Can we just focus on us for a moment? I know the past is heavy, but I'm here now, and I want to make things better. Jennifer nodded slowly, her heart in turmoil. She wanted to believe him, to trust him once more, but the scars of their past were not easily forgotten. The cafe buzzed around them, but in that moment, it felt as if they were in their own world, two souls trying to navigate the wreckage of their shared history. As they continued to talk, a mix of hope and doubt swirled within her. She wanted to see the man who sat before her as the changed person he claimed to be, but the fear of being hurt again loomed large. Could she really take that leap of faith? The coffee shop was buzzing with the midday crowd, the rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee mingling with the sweet scent of pastries. Jennifer sat at a small table in the corner, fidgeting with her napkin as the sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. She had arrived early, partly to gather her thoughts and partly to brace herself for the whirlwind of emotions that the imminent meeting with Mark would undoubtedly unleash. Mark entered the cafe, and for a moment, time seemed to stand still. He looked different, more mature and grounded, with an earnestness that was palpable. The casual clothes he wore contrasted sharply with the tailored suits from their past life together, and Jennifer could see the weight of time etched on his face. She felt a mixture of apprehension and nostalgia as he approached. Hey, Jen, he said, a hesitant smile breaking across his lips. Thanks for meeting me. Jennifer nodded, her heart racing. Yeah, well, I wasn't sure if I would. She sat back, crossing her arms defensively, her mind racing through 1,000 questions and doubts. What do you want to talk about, Mark? He took a deep breath, his eyes searching hers. I wanted to explain everything. I know I hurt you, and I can't change that, but I've changed. I've really worked on myself. Jennifer raised an eyebrow, skepticism evident in her expression. Have you? Because I remember a lot of promises made in the past, and they didn't mean much then. Mark's face fell at her words, but he quickly composed himself. I know it's hard to believe me. But I've spent months in therapy, really digging into my issues. I was selfish, and I let you down. I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but I hope you can at least hear me out. The tension in the air was thick as Jennifer studied Mark's face. He seemed sincere, and yet she could still feel the echoes of their shared past, moments of joy overshadowed by betrayal. Okay, she said finally, her voice steadier than she felt. Talk. They settled into the conversation, the ambient noise of the cafe fading into the background. Mark spoke about his therapy sessions, the hard truths he had to face, and the changes he had made in his life. He talked about how he had distanced himself from toxic friendships and how he had started volunteering in the community to find purpose beyond himself. I've even started painting again, Mark said, a hint of a smile returning. Remember those days when we'd paint together? I was terrible, but it felt good to create something. Jennifer couldn't help but smile at the memory. You were awful, but it was fun. Exactly, he laughed, the sound warm and familiar. That's what I've missed. Just being happy without the weight of everything else pulling me down. As Mark continued, Jennifer found herself leaning in, captivated by his words, but a nagging doubt lingered in her mind. But what about your old friends? The ones who dragged you down before? Are they still in your life? Mark's expression shifted, the shadow of uncertainty crossing his face. Some of them are still around. I can't just cut everyone off entirely. But I'm not the same person I was. I won't let them influence me like before. Just as Mark reached for her hand, their moment was abruptly interrupted by a loud voice from a nearby table. Look who it is. The prodigal son returns. How's it feel to be back in town, Mark? It was Tom, a mutual acquaintance who had always made it a point to bring up Mark's past mistakes whenever possible. Jennifer's heart sank as she felt the atmosphere in the cafe shift. Mark's face darkened, and she could see the tension building. Tom, not now, Mark said, his voice low and controlled. Tom smirked, leaning back in his chair with an air of self-satisfaction. Why not? Everyone's curious about your little redemption tour. How long until you screw up again? That's enough, Jennifer interjected, her voice firm. Mark is trying to change. Can't you be supportive for once? Tom chuckled, the sound dripping with sarcasm. Supportive. This guy was a walking disaster. You really think he's turned over a new leaf? Give me a break. Mark clenched his jaw, visibly struggling to maintain his composure. You don't know anything about me, Tom. You're just trying to stir up trouble. Trouble? No, I'm just stating the obvious. People don't change overnight, especially not guys like you. You think a few therapy sessions will fix everything? Tom sneered. Jennifer could feel the anger rising within her. She had hoped for a peaceful reunion, but it was quickly spiraling into chaos. Why don't you mind your own business, Tom? This isn't about you. Tom shrugged, his smirk unwavering. Just looking out for my friends. You should be careful, Jen. He could hurt you again. The weight of Tom's words hung in the air, and Mark's demeanor shifted, the vulnerability replaced by a defensive edge. I'm not that person anymore, he said, his voice steady but strained. I'm trying to do better, and I'll prove it to you. Prove it? How? By playing nice with everyone. Tom leaned in, relishing the tension. You think a few good deeds will erase the past? You're delusional. Jennifer felt the heat rising in her cheeks, a mix of frustration and confusion swirling within her. She wanted to believe in Mark, to trust that he could change, but the shadow of his past loomed large, fueled by Tom's taunts. Enough, Tom. Just leave us alone." As Tom finally retreated, satisfied with the disruption he had caused, the atmosphere returned to a tense silence. Mark rubbed the back of his neck, clearly affected by the confrontation. "I'm sorry about that," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't want you to see that side of me." Jennifer took a deep breath, trying to process everything. "It's just, this is all so complicated. I want to believe you, but you have doubts," he finished for her, his gaze intense. "I understand. I wouldn't expect anything less. Trust takes time." Jennifer looked down at her hands, her heart heavy with conflicting emotions. "I just don't want to get hurt again, Mark. I can't go through that." "I won't hurt you again," he said, his eyes pleading, filled with sincerity. "I'm here to prove it to you, no matter how long it takes. I'll show you that I'm different." The sincerity in his voice stirred something deep within her, but as the conversation lingered in her mind, she felt the weight of uncertainty overshadowing her heart. After Tom's harsh words, she needed time to think, to process the reality of what had just happened and to figure out where Mark truly fit into her life now. The coffee shop was bustling around them, but in that moment, it felt like they were the only two people in the world. As Jennifer's heart battled with her mind, she knew she had a long road ahead, and the journey toward trust would not be easy. The late afternoon sun filtered through the window of Jennifer's cozy apartment, casting warm golden rays across the room. Jennifer stood in front of her closet, her fingers brushing over her clothes absent-mindedly as thoughts of Mark swirled in her mind. It had been a whirlwind of emotions since their unexpected meeting at the cafe. She felt like she was caught in a storm, with memories of their past clashing against her hopes for the future. "Hey, Jen. You ready?" Lisa's voice broke through Jennifer's reverie. Her best friend had dropped by unannounced, determined to whisk Jennifer away for a night of distraction. "Just a sec." Jennifer called back, taking a deep breath. With one last glance in the mirror, she pushed aside her feelings and forced a smile. "Let's do this." As they stepped out into the crisp evening air, Lisa's energy was palpable. She chattered animatedly about the latest sales at the mall, her excitement infectious. "I swear, we need to get you something cute. Something that says, 'I'm back on the market.'" Jennifer chuckled lightly, but her heart wasn't in it. "I don't know, Lise. I'm not really looking to jump into anything right now." "Oh, come on. You can't just sit around moping about Mark. You need to live a little. Let's find you a killer outfit," Lisa insisted, her eyes sparkling with mischief. As they arrived at the mall, the atmosphere was bustling with shoppers eager for after-work deals. Jennifer found herself reluctantly drawn into the energy, allowing Lisa to lead her from store to store. But even as she tried on clothes and posed in front of the mirror, her mind kept drifting back to Mark. "Okay, this dress is adorable. You have to get it," Lisa exclaimed, holding up a vibrant red sundress that flowed gracefully with every movement. Jennifer admired the dress but shook her head. "I don't know, Lise. Does it really suit me?" she replied, biting her lip. "Are you kidding? You look stunning. It'll definitely turn some heads," Lisa urged, her enthusiasm unwavering. "Plus, you deserve to feel beautiful." With some coaxing, Jennifer finally relented and purchased the dress, a small victory against the whirlwind of her emotions. However, as they headed to the food court for a quick bite, the conversation took a turn. "Okay, now it's your turn to spill. What's really going on with you and Mark?" Lisa asked, her expression serious now. Jennifer hesitated, the weight of her emotions pressing down on her. "I don't know, Lise. He seems different, but I'm just confused. Can people really change that much?" "People can change, Jen. But they have to want it. That's the key," Lisa replied, leaning forward over the table. I mean, look at me. I'm still stuck in this toxic relationship with Brad. I know I need to end it, but it's just so hard. Jennifer furrowed her brow, concern flooding her. You're not happy, are you? You deserve someone who treats you right. You shouldn't have to settle. I know, Lisa sighed, running a hand through her hair. It's complicated. I keep hoping he'll change, that he'll start treating me better. But deep down, I know it's not going to happen. Jennifer reached across the table, squeezing Lisa's hand. You're stronger than you think. If he's not making you happy, you have the power to change that. Maybe I need to take a page out of your book, Lisa said with a half-hearted laugh. You're facing your past head-on with Mark. I should be doing the same. Their conversation lingered in the air, and as they finished their meal, Jennifer felt a flicker of hope ignite within her. If Lisa could find the courage to confront her own struggles, perhaps she could too. Their friendship had always been built on honesty and support, and Jennifer realized that she needed to be a beacon of strength for Lisa as well. Later that evening, after returning from their shopping spree, Jennifer sat on her couch, dressed in her new sundress, staring out the window at the stars. The gentle breeze rustled the leaves outside, creating a calming sound that almost drowned out her racing thoughts. She picked up her phone and sent a quick message to Lisa, you know, I really admire your strength. You can do this. Just take one step at a time. Moments later, her phone buzzed. Thanks, Jen. I needed to hear that. You're going to figure things out with Mark too. I believe in you. Jennifer smiled, feeling a surge of gratitude for her friend. With Lisa's support, she felt empowered to tackle her feelings about Mark. But as the night wore on, the weight of uncertainty settled back in. Could she really trust him? The following week, their friendship blossomed as they began to open up about their struggles. Lisa continued to share her experiences with Brad, and with each conversation, she seemed to inch closer to making the right decision for herself. Honestly, Jen, Lisa confessed one evening as they were sprawled out on the living room floor surrounded by pizza boxes and ice cream containers, I'm terrified of being alone. But I'm even more scared of staying unhappy. Jennifer nodded, feeling the same fears echoing in her own chest. I get it. It's like we're both stuck in this cycle of fear. But what if we took that leap together? Supporting one another through it all? Together sounds good, Lisa said, her eyes lighting up with the idea. Maybe we can help each other find the courage to make a change. With newfound determination, they made a pact that night. They would face their struggles head-on, together. Jennifer felt a sense of relief wash over her as she realized that she didn't have to navigate her feelings about Mark alone. She had Lisa, who was equally ready to reclaim her life. As the days passed, Jennifer found herself contemplating her relationship with Mark more deeply. She began to understand that love could be messy, fraught with uncertainty, but it was also a journey worth taking. One evening, after another long day at work, Jennifer received a text from Mark asking if they could meet again. Her heart raced at the thought, a mix of excitement and anxiety flooding her system. She glanced over at Lisa, who was engrossed in a movie. Hey, Lisa. Jennifer ventured, hesitating a moment before continuing. Mark wants to meet again. What do you think? Lisa paused the movie, turning her full attention to Jennifer. You should go. If he's serious about changing, you owe it to yourself to see where it goes. Jennifer nodded, her resolve strengthening. You're right. I need to give him a chance, but I won't ignore my instincts this time. I'll keep my guard up. Good. Just remember, you're worth it. You deserve someone who truly values you, Lisa said, her voice encouraging. As Jennifer prepared for her meeting with Mark, she felt a mix of hope and apprehension. But now, she had the support of a friend who was also on her journey towards self-discovery. Whatever happened next, she knew she wouldn't be facing it alone. As days turned into weeks, Jennifer found herself navigating the complexities of her feelings for Mark. Each encounter peeled back layers of doubt and hesitation, revealing glimpses of the love she thought she had buried long ago. Their meetings became a delicate dance, a tightrope walk between hope and skepticism. One crisp autumn afternoon, they met at their usual cafe, a quaint little spot with wooden tables and the aroma of freshly brewed coffee that wrapped around them like a warm hug. As Jennifer entered, she noticed Mark already seated at their corner table, a half-empty cup of coffee in front of him. His expression was a mix of anticipation and anxiety, and she felt a flutter of nerves in her stomach. "Hey," she greeted softly, settling into the chair across from him. "Hey," Mark replied, a hesitant smile spreading across his face. "I was starting to think you wouldn't come." Jennifer shrugged, trying to maintain a light-hearted demeanor. "I wouldn't miss our coffee date. It's the highlight of my week," she said, but her tone betrayed her uncertainty. Mark studied her for a moment, his blue eyes searching hers. "I know things are complicated between us. I just want you to know that I'm trying. I really am." Jennifer took a deep breath, her heart racing. "I appreciate that, Mark. But it's hard for me to just forget everything that happened. I can't just ignore the past." "I wouldn't ask you to," he replied earnestly. "But I'm not that person anymore. I've worked hard to change. I want you to see that." As they spoke, the conversation flowed from small talk to deeper topics, with Mark sharing stories of his journey towards self-improvement. He talked about attending therapy, reading self-help books, and volunteering at a local shelter. The sincerity in his voice was palpable, and Jennifer found herself captivated by his words. "I've learned so much about myself," he continued, his voice steady. "I used to think I was invincible, but I realized that I was just running away from my problems. I want to face them now, and I want to face them with you, if you'll let me." Jennifer's heart softened slightly, but a nagging doubt lingered. "But what about your friends? The ones from your past? You said you still see them sometimes." Mark's expression shifted, a shadow passing over his face. "Yeah, I do. But I'm working on setting boundaries. It's not easy, but I know I need to prioritize my life now. I don't want to go back to who I was." "Do you really think you can?" she challenged, her voice barely above a whisper. "What if they pull you back in?" "I won't let them," he said firmly, leaning closer. "I promise you, I won't. But it's a part of my life that I can't just cut off completely. I need to show them that I've changed. I need to show myself." Jennifer sighed, grappling with the conflicting emotions swirling within her. "I want to believe you, Mark. I really do. But it's hard for me to reconcile the person I loved with the person you're trying to be now." Just then, a familiar voice interrupted their conversation. Well, look what we have here." It was Tom, an acquaintance from their small town, known for his sharp tongue and penchant for gossip. He sauntered over, a smirk plastered on his face. "Mark, I didn't know you were back in town," trying to charm your way back into Jennifer's heart. Jennifer felt her cheeks flush with embarrassment as she shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Mark's posture stiffened, a flicker of annoyance crossing his features. "Tom, this isn't really the time," Mark began, but Tom cut him off. "Come on, it's a small town. Everyone knows about your past. You really think you can just waltz back in here and pretend to be some reformed man?" Tom's laugh was sharp, cruel. "I hope you're not fooling Jennifer. She deserves better than to be another notch on your belt." "Shut up, Tom," Jennifer snapped, her protective instincts flaring. You don't know what you're talking about. Do I? He retorted, crossing his arms. I've seen the way he treated you before. How long until he slips back into his old ways? You really think he's changed? Mark clenched his jaw, his fists tightening on the table. I'm doing my best to be different. I'm not that person anymore, Tom. I'm trying to show Jennifer that I can be better. Tom rolled his eyes, unimpressed. Right, because we all know how well that works out. Good luck with that, Jennifer. You might need it. With that, Tom walked away, leaving a heavy silence in his wake. Jennifer felt the weight of his words hanging in the air, and she looked at Mark, who was visibly shaken. Sorry about that, she said softly, trying to bridge the gap created by Tom's harsh comments. He can be a real jerk. Mark took a deep breath, attempting to regain his composure. It's fine. I can handle him. What bothers me is that he's not wrong. I don't expect everyone to believe in me, especially with my history. Jennifer searched his eyes, wanting to offer reassurance but knowing her own doubts were still simmering beneath the surface. But I want to believe you, Mark. I do. It's hard. I get it, he said, his voice low. It's hard for me too. I've been fighting my past demons, and I know they'll always be a part of me. But I'm trying to be better, not just for you, but for myself. As they sat in silence, the weight of their conversation hung heavily. Jennifer felt torn, caught between the remnants of a love that once consumed her and the fear of repeating past mistakes. Later that evening, as she walked home, the cool breeze brushed against her skin, mirroring the whirlwind of emotions within her. Her mind raced with thoughts of Mark's sincerity and Tom's biting words, creating a cacophony of uncertainty. When she reached her apartment, she plopped down on the couch, staring blankly at the wall. The phone buzzed on the coffee table, breaking the silence. She glanced at the screen, an unknown number. Hesitation washed over her, but curiosity won out, and she answered. Jennifer, a voice on the other end said, distorted and unrecognizable. You need to be careful with Mark. He's not who he says he is. Her heart sank, a chill creeping up her spine. Who is this? What do you mean? Just remember what he did before. He hasn't changed. The line went dead before she could respond, leaving her with more questions than answers. Jennifer sank back into the couch, her heart racing. The weight of doubt pressed against her chest, and she couldn't shake the feeling that she was standing on the edge of a precipice, unsure whether to leap forward into the unknown or pull back to safety. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Jennifer found herself pacing her living room, her mind a whirlwind of thoughts. She had spent the past few days contemplating her feelings for Mark, the man who once shattered her heart but now claimed to have transformed into someone better. The memories of their shared laughter and the pain of betrayal played like a broken record in her mind. She felt the weight of her past pressing down on her chest, but there was also a flicker of hope, a gentle nudge urging her to consider giving him another chance. Taking a deep breath, she picked up her phone and dialed Mark's number. The sound of his voice brought a rush of emotions. Hey, Jennifer, he greeted, his tone warm and inviting. Hi, Mark, she replied, hesitating for a moment. I've been thinking, maybe we could talk about things. In person. Of course. I'd like that. When and where? He asked eagerly. Let's meet at the park tomorrow, around 3, she suggested, feeling a mix of anxiety and excitement. Sounds perfect. I'll see you then, he said, and they hung up. The next day dawned bright and clear. Jennifer arrived at the park early, her heart racing as she sat on a bench under a sprawling oak tree. She watched the leaves dance in the gentle breeze, her mind racing with questions. What if he hadn't really changed? What if he hurt her again? But the thought of Mark's earnest eyes and the vulnerability he had shown her during their last encounter kept her from turning back. When Mark arrived, he looked different. He wore a simple white shirt and jeans, but there was a maturity in his demeanor that hadn't been there before. As he approached, Jennifer could see the determination in his eyes. "Hey," he said softly, taking a seat beside her. "Thanks for meeting me." "Thanks for coming," she replied, trying to keep her tone neutral. For a moment, they sat in silence, the weight of their shared history hanging between them. Finally, Mark broke the silence. "I know I don't deserve this chance, but I want to show you that I'm not the same person I was. I've been working hard on myself, and I really want to prove that I can be better." Jennifer turned to him, searching his face for any sign of insincerity. "How can I trust that you've really changed, Mark? You made so many promises before." "I know," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "And I know that words mean nothing without actions. I've been going to therapy, trying to understand why I did what I did. I've even started volunteering at the community center. It's been eye-opening." "Volunteering?" she asked, genuinely surprised. "What made you do that?" "I realized I needed to give back to the community, to make amends for the hurt I caused. It's hard work, but it's also rewarding. I've met so many amazing people who've shown me kindness, and I want to be someone worthy of that." Jennifer felt a flicker of hope. "That sounds positive. But how do I know you won't slip back into old habits? You still have friends from that part of your life." Mark nodded, acknowledging her concerns. "I understand. I've had to distance myself from a lot of those people. Some of them don't understand my choices, and I don't want to go back to that life. But I can't just erase my past. I need you to know that I'm working on it, and I'm committed to making better choices." Her heart softened a little, but a cloud of doubt still lingered. "What if you run into them? What if they tempt you back into your old ways?" "I can't promise that it will be easy," he replied earnestly. "But I can promise that I will fight for this, fight for you. I want to build something real this time, but I need you to help me. I need your trust." Jennifer looked down at her hands, feeling the weight of his words. She wanted to believe him, but the scars of their past were deep. "Trust is hard for me, Mark. You hurt me more than I can explain." "I know, and I'm so sorry for that," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I wish I could take it back. All I can do is ask for your forgiveness and a chance to show you I can be better." In that moment, Jennifer realized how much she wanted to believe him. She wanted to see the man standing before her succeed, not just for her, but for himself. "If we're going to try this, I need some ground rules. I can't go through the same heartache again. I need transparency, no secrets." "Absolutely," Mark responded, his eyes lighting up with a mix of relief and determination. "I will share everything with you. You'll never have to wonder what I'm doing or who I'm with. And I need you to be patient with me," she continued, her voice steady. "I might not be able to trust you right away. It's going to take time." "Time is what I'm willing to give," he said, sincerity radiating from him. "I want to earn your trust back, step by step." They fell into a comfortable silence, the tension easing slightly. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows on the ground, Jennifer felt a warmth spreading in her chest. Perhaps this was a new beginning. "Okay," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "Let's see where this goes." A smile broke across Mark's face, and he reached for her hand. "Thank you, Jennifer. I won't let you down." Their fingers intertwined, and for the first time in a long while, Jennifer felt a sense of hope. She had opened a door to the possibility of love again, and while the path ahead might be fraught with challenges, she felt ready to face them. Meanwhile, Lisa, Jennifer's best friend, had been watching the transformation in her friend from a distance. The next day, she decided to take Jennifer out for a much-needed distraction. As they browsed a local boutique, Lisa noticed Jennifer's distracted demeanor. "You've been quiet today. What's on your mind?" she asked, holding up a vibrant dress to see how it looked. Jennifer sighed, her fingers absent-mindedly playing with a bracelet on her wrist. "It's Mark. We're trying to work things out, but I'm still scared." "Scared of what?" Lisa prodded, genuinely concerned. "Scared of getting hurt again. But also, I can't help but think about what he's doing to change. I just don't know if it's enough," Jennifer admitted. Lisa placed the dress down and turned to face her. "You deserve happiness, Jen. But what about you? Are you ready to open your heart again?" "I want to be," Jennifer confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I need to be cautious. I don't want to repeat the same mistakes." "Have you talked to him about how you feel?" Lisa asked, her tone softening. "Yes, and he's been really open. He even wants to volunteer and work on himself," Jennifer replied, a hint of hope creeping into her voice. "That's a start," Lisa encouraged, her expression brightening. "Maybe this is your chance to find out what you really want. Sometimes, we have to take risks to find happiness." Jennifer nodded, feeling a sense of resolve. "You're right. I need to give it a chance. I just hope I'm making the right decision." "Trust your instincts, Jen. And remember, I'm here for you no matter what happens," Lisa said, wrapping her arm around her friend's shoulder. As the sun set on their shopping day, Jennifer felt a renewed sense of purpose. She was ready to take the leap into the unknown and see if love could be rekindled, not only between her and Mark, but within herself as well. The small town of Maplewood was abuzz with whispers and glances as the sun dipped low in the sky, casting a golden hue over the quaint streets. Jennifer sat at her favorite corner table in the cafe, nervously stirring her coffee, her mind a whirlwind of emotions. The air was thick with tension, and she could feel the eyes of the townsfolk on her, their curiosity palpable. After all, her connection with Mark, the man who had once shattered her heart, had reignited a storm of gossip. Mark had been making strides to prove himself, but the weight of his past still loomed heavily over him. He had volunteered at the local shelter, cleaned up parks, and even started a youth mentorship program. Yet, the more he tried to show his sincerity, the more the town seemed to scrutinize his every move. Jennifer's heart ached for him, but she couldn't help but feel the pressure mounting around them. As she sipped her coffee, her phone buzzed with a message from Mark, who was running late. "Sorry, Jen. Just finishing up at the community center. See you soon." She sighed, tapping her fingers against the table. Despite the warmth in his words, doubt crept into her mind. Could he really change? Or was this all just a facade? Moments later, Mark entered the cafe, his presence commanding yet vulnerable. He scanned the room until his eyes landed on Jennifer, a soft smile breaking on his lips. The tension in her stomach twisted as he approached, the familiar mix of excitement and apprehension flooding her senses. "Hey," he said, sliding into the chair across from her. "Sorry for being late. I got caught up talking to some kids about their projects." "It's fine," Jennifer replied, trying to keep her tone neutral. "I'm glad you're involved with the kids. They need good role models." Mark nodded, his expression earnest. "I just want to do better, Jen. I know I messed up before, but I'm trying to show that I can be different." Jennifer's heart softened at his words, yet the doubt gnawed at her. "But can you really change? People talk, Mark. They remember what you did." "I know," he admitted, his voice dropping to a whisper. "And I can't blame them. I was an idiot. But I'm not that person anymore." I'm not asking you to forgive me right away, but I want you to see that I'm working on it. Just then, a commotion erupted at the entrance of the cafe. A group of locals walked in, and Jennifer recognized them immediately. They were friends of Mark's from his past, the very reason for her heartbreak. As they made their way to the counter, one of them, a burly man named Greg, glanced over at their table. A smirk formed on his face, and he leaned in to whisper something to his friends, eliciting snickers and eye rolls. Mark's expression darkened as he caught their gaze. "Ignore them," he murmured, but Jennifer felt the tension in the air shift. The cafe that had felt like a safe space suddenly seemed hostile. "They're not going to let this go, are they?" she said, her voice trembling slightly. "They think they know everything about me," Mark replied, frustration seeping into his tone. "But they don't see the work I'm doing. They just want to keep me in the past." Jennifer bit her lip, torn between supporting Mark and the reality of their situation. "But you still have ties to them, don't you? You can't just cut everyone off." As if on cue, Greg approached their table, a smug expression plastered across his face. "Look who it is," he sneered. "The town's reformed bad boy and his latest project. How's it feel to be the talk of the town?" Mark's jaw clenched, and Jennifer could see the fire in his eyes. "I'm just trying to move forward, Greg. Why don't you do the same? Move forward." Greg laughed, a harsh, mocking sound. "You think you can just waltz back into town and play the hero? Everyone knows you're still the same scumbag. You just put on a different mask." Jennifer felt her heart race, the tension in the cafe thickening. She could see the discomfort on the faces of the other patrons, who were all pretending to be engrossed in their conversations but were clearly eavesdropping on the unfolding drama. "Why don't you just leave us alone?" she finally said, finding her voice. "Mark is trying to change." "Oh, please," Greg scoffed, rolling his eyes. "Change? A leopard doesn't change its spots, sweetheart. You really think he's going to be there for you when the going gets tough?" "Enough!" Mark shouted, his voice echoing through the cafe. The room fell silent, all eyes on him. "I'm not that person anymore, and I won't let you drag me back into your toxic world. I'm trying to be better for myself and for her." Greg's smirk faded, replaced by a glimmer of anger. "You're just a joke, man. And she's going to find that out the hard way." Jennifer's heart raced as she watched the confrontation. She could feel the heat rising in her cheeks, a mix of embarrassment and anger. "Mark, maybe we should just go," she suggested softly, not wanting to escalate things further. "No," Mark said firmly, his eyes locked on Greg. "I'm done letting people like you dictate my life. I'm here to make amends, and if you can't respect that, then you can get out of my way." With that, he stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. The tension hung in the air, thick and suffocating. Greg opened his mouth to respond, but Mark turned his back on him, focusing entirely on Jennifer. "Let's go. I don't want you to see me like this." As they stepped outside, the cool evening air hit them like a wave, the chaos of the cafe fading behind them. Jennifer took a deep breath, trying to steady her racing heart. "I'm sorry, Mark. I didn't want that to happen." Mark ran a hand through his hair, visibly shaken. "No, I'm sorry. I should have handled it better. You're trying so hard," she interrupted gently. "But it's hard for me too. I want to believe you, but things like that make it difficult." "I understand," he said, his voice softening. "I just need you to trust me. I'm not asking for all your faith overnight, but can you give me a chance?" Jennifer looked into his eyes, searching for the man she once loved and the man he was becoming. "I want to believe in you, Mark. I really do. But I also have to protect myself." "I get it," he replied, his shoulders slumping slightly. I need you to know that I'm serious about this. About us. As they walked down the street, the weight of the confrontation lingered in the air. The path ahead was uncertain, fraught with doubt and insecurity, but deep down, Jennifer could feel a flicker of hope. Perhaps, against all odds, they could find a way to navigate the storm together. Mark sat at the edge of the park, the warm afternoon sun casting long shadows across the grass. He watched as children played, their laughter ringing out like music. The light breeze brought with it the scent of blooming flowers, but he felt a weight in his chest. He had been working hard to prove himself to Jennifer, to show her that he was not the man he used to be. Yet, despite his efforts, doubt lingered in her eyes. "Hey," Lisa said, walking up beside him, her arms crossed. "You look like you're about to solve the world's problems or something." Mark offered a half-hearted smile. "Just thinking about Jennifer. I'm not sure she's seeing the changes I'm trying to make." Lisa studied him for a moment, her brows knitting together in concern. "She's been through a lot, Mark. It's not easy for her to just forget everything. You have to give her time." "I get that," he sighed, running a hand through his hair. "But I feel like I'm losing her all over again, and this time I can't afford to mess it up." "Actions speak louder than words," Lisa advised, placing a hand on his shoulder. "If you really want her back, show her. Don't just tell her." Mark nodded, determination flickering in his eyes. "You're right. I need to show her how serious I am. I'll do something big, something she can't ignore." As the sun began to set, Mark made up his mind. He would organize a community event, a day of service that showcased not only his commitment to change but also his desire to give back to the town that had given him so much. He hoped that through his actions, he could demonstrate his sincerity and earn Jennifer's trust. The following days were a blur of planning and organizing. Mark reached out to local businesses, gathered volunteers, and spread the word throughout the community. He wanted to make this event memorable, something that would resonate with everyone. He envisioned a day filled with laughter, hard work, and a sense of unity. On the day of the event, the park was alive with activity. Colorful banners flapped in the breeze, and the scent of freshly grilled food wafted through the air. Families gathered, kids ran around, and laughter filled the atmosphere. Mark felt a swell of pride as he looked around at the smiling faces. "Mark," called out Jennifer, her voice slicing through the joyous noise. He turned to see her walking toward him, her expression a mix of curiosity and caution. She had come. "Hey, I'm so glad you're here," he exclaimed, trying to mask the jolt of nerves in his stomach. "What's all this?" she asked, glancing around at the bustling crowd. "I wanted to do something for the community," he explained, his heart racing. "To show that I'm serious about changing. Not just for you, but for everyone. I want to be a part of this town again." Jennifer studied him, her gaze searching for the sincerity she so desperately needed to believe in. "It looks nice. But why now? What made you decide to do this?" "Because I realized that I've taken so much from this place," he admitted, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "I need to give back. And I want you to see that I'm not the same person anymore." She paused, her defenses wavering slightly. "It's a good start, but it's going to take more than just one event to prove that." "I know," he said, meeting her gaze. "But I'm willing to put in the work. I want to earn your trust back, Jennifer. I'll do whatever it takes." Just then, a loud cheer erupted from the crowd as a group of volunteers finished painting a community mural. Mark turned to see the vibrant colors coming to life on the wall, a representation of hope and renewal. He felt a rush of inspiration. "Let's go help them," he suggested, motioning toward the mural. "You can see for yourself how much everyone is enjoying this." Jennifer hesitated, but then a small smile broke through her uncertainty. Okay, let's do it. They walked together to the mural, where children laughed and adults worked side by side, splashing paint and sharing stories. Mark felt a sense of belonging wash over him. He picked up a brush and handed one to Jennifer. Here, let's add some color, he said, dipping the brush into a bright shade of blue. As they painted, laughter bubbled between them, and for a moment, it felt like old times. Mark watched Jennifer, her focus intense as she added strokes of color to the mural. He admired her dedication and talent, and it reminded him of why he fell in love with her in the first place. "You have a real gift, you know," he said, lightly nudging her as she stepped back to assess her work. "This looks amazing." "Thanks," she replied, a hint of shyness creeping into her voice. "But it's nothing compared to what you're doing here today." "Just trying to make a difference," he said, a hopeful smile on his face. "And maybe trying to make things right with you." As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting a warm golden hue over the park, Mark felt a sense of peace settle in his heart. He was beginning to believe that maybe, just maybe, he could win her back. Later that evening, as the event drew to a close, Mark gathered everyone for a brief speech. The crowd quieted, and he stepped up to the microphone, his heart pounding. He glanced at Jennifer, who stood among the crowd, her expression unreadable. "Thank you all for coming today," he started, his voice steady. "This event means a lot to me. I know I haven't always been the person you wanted me to be. I've made mistakes, serious ones. But I'm here today to show you that I'm committed to changing for the better, not just for myself but for this community that I care so deeply about." He paused, taking a deep breath. "I'm asking for your support as I try to rebuild my life. I want to be a positive influence, to contribute to the town that raised me. And most importantly, I want to prove to Jennifer that I can be the man she deserves." A ripple of murmurs passed through the crowd, and Mark felt the weight of their eyes upon him. But he focused on Jennifer, hoping to see a flicker of understanding or acceptance. After his speech, people began to approach him, offering support and encouragement. But Mark's gaze remained on Jennifer. She walked toward him, her expression softening with each step. "Mark," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "That was powerful. I'm impressed." "Really?" he asked, a hint of disbelief in his tone. "Yeah," she continued, her eyes locked onto his. "I can see how much effort you're putting in. It's a good start. But I still need time." "I understand," he replied, his heart racing. "I just want you to know that I'm here to stay. I'm not going anywhere." Jennifer nodded, a small smile breaking through her seriousness. "Let's just take it one step at a time." As the sun set behind them, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange, Mark felt a renewed sense of hope. He had taken a significant step toward redemption, and while the road ahead remained uncertain, he was ready to face it with Jennifer by his side. Meanwhile, Lisa watched from a distance, her heart swelling with pride for her friend. She had witnessed Mark's transformation and Jennifer's gradual thawing of her heart. Just as she was about to turn away, she spotted someone familiar. A spark of excitement ignited within her as she approached, ready to embrace her own new beginning. The sun began to set over the small town, casting a warm golden glow on the community center where the monthly town hall meeting was about to take place. Jennifer sat among the crowd, her heart racing as she waited for Mark to take the stage. She had been wrestling with her emotions ever since their recent reconnections, and now, as she sat in the folding chair, she felt the weight of the entire town's judgment upon her. "Do you think he'll really talk about everything?" whispered Lisa, who sat beside her, fidgeting with her phone. Jennifer shrugged, glancing at the podium where Mark was supposed to speak. "I hope so. If he's serious about changing, this is his chance to prove it." The room buzzed with chatter, a mix of curiosity and skepticism. Long-standing residents of the town exchanged glances, whispering about Mark's past. Jennifer could feel the tension building, and it made her stomach churn. She had seen glimpses of the man Mark had become, but could he truly shed the shadows of his former self? As the meeting commenced, the mayor introduced Mark, who stood nervously at the front, his hands fidgeting at his sides. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here tonight," he began, his voice steady but laced with emotion. "I know I'm not the man you remember. I've made mistakes, serious mistakes, and I stand before you today to take responsibility for them." The crowd murmured, some nodding while others rolled their eyes. Jennifer leaned forward, her heart pounding. She could see Mark's sincerity in his eyes, but would the community believe him? "I've hurt people," Mark continued, his voice gaining strength. "I've let my choices lead me down a dark path, and I hurt the one person who mattered the most to me." He paused, looking directly at Jennifer, who felt her cheeks flush under the gaze of the entire room. "Jennifer, I am truly sorry for the pain I caused you. I've spent every day since trying to become a better person, and I'm here to show you that I'm committed to this change." Jennifer's heart swelled with a mix of hope and fear. Could he really be different? She glanced at Lisa, who was watching intently, her expression a mix of support and concern. Mark took a deep breath, as if gathering courage. "I know that words are not enough, and I'm not asking for your forgiveness overnight. I'm simply asking for a chance to prove myself. I want to contribute to this community, not just as someone who used to be part of it, but as someone who cares deeply about its future." There was a moment of silence before a voice broke through the crowd. "How can we trust you? You've betrayed us before." It was Mr. Thompson, an elder in the community whose disdain was palpable. Mark's expression faltered for a moment, but he quickly regained his composure. "I understand your hesitation," he replied, his voice firm yet understanding. "I wouldn't trust someone like me either. But I've realized the impact of my actions, and that realization has changed me. I'm not asking you to forget the past, but to see the person I am now and the person I'm striving to be." Jennifer could feel the energy in the room shifting. Some members of the community were nodding, while others remained skeptical, crossing their arms as they listened. She wondered how many of them had experienced their own struggles and transformations. "I'm committed to volunteering," Mark continued. "I want to help with the youth programs, support local charities, and be an active member of this town. I don't expect immediate acceptance, but I hope to earn your trust through my actions." As he spoke, Jennifer noticed a few heads turning to her, their expressions questioning. It felt as if the weight of their expectations pressed down on her shoulders. She wanted to shout that she believed in him, that she had seen the changes, but fear held her back. "Actions speak louder than words, Mark," another voice chimed in, this time a younger woman named Sarah. "You can't just say you've changed. You need to show us. What specific steps are you taking?" Mark nodded, appreciating the challenge. "You're right, Sarah. I've already started by volunteering at the local shelter and attending community meetings. I'm working on a project to create a mentorship program for at-risk youth in this town. I want to give back and help those who might be on the same path I once was." Jennifer felt a flicker of hope. This was the Mark she wanted to believe in, a man willing to take action rather than just talk. But doubt still lingered in her mind, a shadow that refused to leave. As the meeting continued, attendees began to express their opinions, and the atmosphere became charged with a mix of skepticism and cautious optimism. "What if you slip up again?" someone asked. "How can we be sure you won't fall back into old habits?" "I can't promise perfection," Mark replied, his voice clear and steady. "But I can promise to be accountable. I've surrounded myself with supportive people who will hold me accountable, and I'm committed to transparency. If I ever falter, I'll be the first to admit it." Jennifer watched as Mark spoke, his passion evident in every word. She could see that he was fighting for not just his redemption but also for a place in this community, and in her life. After several more questions, the meeting began to wind down. Mark concluded his speech with a heartfelt message. "I know I've lost your trust, and I'm not asking for it back immediately. I just want the opportunity to show you that I can be better. I want to be the man you deserve." The crowd erupted into a mix of applause and murmurs. Some people stood, clearly moved by his words, while others remained seated, their arms crossed in skepticism. Jennifer felt tears prick her eyes as she listened to the applause but also felt the heaviness of the doubt that lingered. As the attendees began to disperse, Jennifer remained seated, contemplating everything she had just heard. "What do you think?" Lisa asked, her voice low. "I don't know," Jennifer replied, her voice barely a whisper. "He sounded sincere, but can I really trust him?" Before Lisa could respond, someone approached them. It was one of Mark's old friends, a man Jennifer recognized from their past. He had a skeptical look on his face, and Jennifer felt a chill run down her spine. "Don't be fooled, Jennifer," he said, his voice dripping with disdain. "People like him don't change. You'll just end up hurt again." Jennifer's heart sank. She didn't want to hear this, especially not now. She caught Mark's eye from across the room as he spoke with the mayor, and for a moment, she saw the vulnerability in his expression. "I have to go talk to him," she said suddenly, her determination flaring. "I need to know where he really stands." "Are you sure?" Lisa asked, concern etched across her face. "I have to, Lisa. I need to hear it from him directly." With that, Jennifer stood and walked towards Mark, her heart pounding in her chest. As she approached, she could see the tension in his shoulders ease when he noticed her. "Hey," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Can we talk?" "Of course," Mark replied, his expression shifting from one of uncertainty to relief. They stepped to the side, away from the bustling crowd, and Jennifer took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts. "You really meant what you said up there, didn't you?" Mark nodded, his eyes earnest. "Every word. I know it's a long road ahead, but I'm ready to walk it. I want you to be part of it." Jennifer felt a mix of hope and fear swirl within her. "But what if you slip again? What if you can't follow through?" "I understand your fears," he said softly. "But I promise you, I'm committed to this change. I don't want to go back to who I was. I want to be a better man, for you and for myself." As he spoke, Jennifer felt the tension in her chest begin to ease, even if just a little. She wanted to believe him, to see the man he was trying to become. But the shadows of the past still loomed large, and she wasn't sure if she could fully embrace this new version of Mark. "I need time," she said finally, her voice steady but soft. "Time to see if you really mean it." "Take all the time you need," Mark replied, a sincere smile breaking through the uncertainty in his eyes. "I'll be right here, waiting." With that, Jennifer felt a glimmer of hope. Perhaps this was the beginning of something new, not just for Mark but for her as well. She glanced back at the crowd, where whispers and glances still echoed, but this time, she felt a sense of determination. She would navigate this journey, one step at a time, and hopefully, they would find a way back to each other. As the community meeting progressed, an uneasy tension filled the air. Mark stood at the front of the room, a mixture of determination and vulnerability etched across his face. He had prepared for this moment, rehearsing his speech countless times in front of a mirror, trying to muster the courage to confront not only the townspeople but also the shadows of his past. Jennifer sat in the back, her heart racing, torn between pride for Mark's bravery and fear of the truth he might reveal. As Mark spoke, his voice resonated with sincerity. "I know I've made mistakes," he began, his gaze sweeping over the familiar faces of the community. "I hurt many of you, especially Jennifer. But I'm here today to show you that I've changed. The crowd was silent, some leaning forward, others crossing their arms tightly across their chests, skepticism written all over their expressions. You think you can just come back here after everything you've done? A voice called out from the back. It was Greg, a longtime resident known for his blunt remarks. How do we know you're not just putting on a show? Mark inhaled deeply, the weight of Greg's accusation settling heavily on his shoulders. I understand why you feel that way, Greg. I was a fool. I took my life for granted and hurt everyone around me. But I've worked hard to become a better person. I volunteer at the community center now. I'm trying to help those I once let down. Jennifer's heart ached as she watched Mark plead his case. She wanted to believe him, to trust that this was genuinely the man he claimed to be, but doubt gnawed at her. Was this transformation real, or just a desperate attempt to win her back? Just because you're volunteering doesn't erase the past, Greg pressed, his voice dripping with disdain. You can't just waltz back into town and expect us to forget who you were. Mark glanced at Jennifer, who looked away, her fingers nervously fidgeting with the hem of her sweater. He could see the internal battle raging within her. I'm not asking for forgiveness, he replied, raising his voice slightly to command attention. I know that will take time. But I'm here to own my mistakes and show you that I'm committed to being a better man. As the murmurs in the room intensified, a familiar figure entered the meeting hall. It was Tom, an old friend from Mark's past, who had always been a bad influence. Mark's stomach dropped at the sight of him. He hadn't expected Tom to show up, and the last thing he wanted was for Tom to derail his efforts for redemption. Look who it is, Tom exclaimed, his voice laced with sarcasm. The prodigal son returns. What's this? A little community service to wash away your sins. He chuckled, causing several attendees to shift uncomfortably in their seats. Mark's heart raced as he faced Tom. I'm trying to change, Tom. You wouldn't understand that because you're still stuck in the same old cycle. Stuck. I'm living my life, Mark. You're the one running back to the past because you can't face the consequences of your actions, Tom shot back, his tone accusatory. Jennifer felt the tension spike, and she stood up, unable to remain silent any longer. Mark is trying to change. We all make mistakes. It's not fair to judge him solely based on his past. Tom scoffed, turning to Jennifer. And you're willing to overlook everything he did to you? What happens when he hurts you again? You think he's changed, but people don't just change overnight. Maybe not overnight, Jennifer argued, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside her. But he's here, trying to prove he's different. Isn't that worth something? The room fell silent as everyone processed her words. Mark looked at Jennifer, his heart swelling with gratitude for her unwavering support. But the doubt still lingered in his mind. Could he truly prove himself to everyone, especially to her? Suddenly, Greg stood up again, his expression conflicted. This isn't just about you, Mark. You say you're changed, but you still have connections to your old life. What's to stop you from falling back into those habits? Mark felt the weight of the accusation. I've cut ties with those who drag me down, Greg. I want to be a part of this community, not a burden. I promise you, I'm working hard to stay on the right path. Are you still talking to those people? Greg challenged, narrowing his eyes. Because if you are, we can't trust you. And if we can't trust you, then how can Jennifer? The room buzzed with whispers, and Mark felt the walls closing in on him. I'm trying to be honest with you all. I've distanced myself from those who influenced me negatively. I'm not perfect, but I'm trying to do better, he exclaimed, desperation creeping into his voice. Tom smirked, clearly enjoying the way the crowd was turning against Mark. How about you tell us about your friends then? You've always been good at lying. Mark clenched his fists, the situation spiraling out of control. I don't owe you anything, Tom. I'm trying to make amends here, and your presence is only causing more harm. Maybe you should have thought about that before you decided to throw your life away, Tom retorted, his voice dripping with contempt. Jennifer felt a surge of anger. Enough, she shouted, her voice cutting through the tension. This isn't helping anyone. Mark is trying to be better. You can't keep dragging him back to the past, Tom. Mark's heart pounded in his chest as he watched Jennifer stand up for him. She was a beacon of strength amid the chaos, and he wanted nothing more than to prove her right. But in the back of his mind, doubt lingered. Would he ever truly be free from the shadows of his past? The confrontation escalated, with voices rising and accusations flying. Mark's head spun as he tried to focus on the task at hand, rebuilding trust with Jennifer and the community. But every word from Tom felt like a dagger, piercing through the fragile wall he had built around his newfound identity. Eventually, the meeting began to dissolve into chaos, people yelling over one another, each side entrenched in their beliefs. Mark turned to Jennifer, his eyes pleading. I'm sorry this is happening. I thought I could handle this. She stepped closer, her expression softening. Don't apologize to me. You're fighting for your life here, Mark. Just remember who you're doing this for. I need you to believe in me, he whispered, desperation evident in his voice. I do, but, Jennifer hesitated, glancing at the crowd, where Tom continued to stir the pot. It's hard when the past keeps coming back to haunt us. Mark nodded, the gravity of her words weighing heavily on him. He turned back to the crowd, his voice steady, despite the turmoil swirling inside. I know I have a long way to go, and I'm ready to prove myself. I'm not asking for your acceptance right now, but I will show you that I am not the man I once was. Greg crossed his arms, skepticism still evident on his face. You say that, but words can only take you so far. We'll see if you can actually change. With that, the meeting continued to spiral, but Mark felt a flicker of hope ignite within him. If he could just hold on to that hope, maybe he could rewrite his story. But as the confrontation continued, one thought plagued him. Could he truly escape the ghost of his past, or would it forever haunt him, threatening to unravel everything he had fought for? As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the small town, Jennifer took a deep breath and stepped into the cafe where she and Mark had shared so many memories, both good and bad. This was a different kind of meeting, one filled with anticipation and anxiety. She knew she had to confront her feelings head-on. Mark was waiting for her, his expression a mix of hope and uncertainty. Hey, he said softly, a hint of vulnerability in his voice. Hey, Jennifer replied, her heart pounding. She could feel the weight of their shared past pressing down on her. I've been thinking about everything you said, about your journey and the changes you've made. Mark nodded, his expression earnest. I know I've made mistakes, and I can't take back the hurt I caused you. But I'm here, and I want to prove to you that I've changed. Jennifer studied his face, searching for any sign of the man who had once broken her heart. It's not just about you changing, Mark. It's about trust. I don't know if I can trust you again. I understand, he replied, his voice low. But I'm willing to do whatever it takes. I'm not that person anymore. I want us to have a chance, if you're willing to try. Her heart ached at the thought, but the memories of their past loomed large, casting shadows on her hopes. I need to know you're serious. This isn't just about us, it's about everything we've been through. The town, the rumors, they're getting to me. Mark leaned forward, his gaze intense. I'll face whatever I have to. I'll stand up to anyone who tries to drag us down. You mean too much to me to let anything come between us. Just as the tension in the air began to lift, an unexpected voice broke through the moment. Look who it is. A sneering tone came from the entrance of the cafe, where a familiar figure stood, Tom, an old friend of Mark's, who had a knack for stirring up trouble. The town's favorite couple back together, huh? Don't you remember how he treated you, Jen? This guy hasn't changed a bit. Jennifer's heart sank. Tom, not now, she said, her voice trembling. Mark's jaw tightened, and he stood up, facing Tom head-on. You don't know anything about me, Tom. I'm not that person anymore. You need to back off. Oh, really? Is that why you're still hanging out with the same crowd? The same losers who haven't changed since high school? Tom laughed derisively, his eyes darting between them, seeking to provoke. Leave us alone, Jennifer said, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside her. This is between us. Tom stepped closer, a smug smile on his face. You think he's changed? People like him don't change, Jen. He'll just break your heart again. Mark took a deep breath, trying to keep his composure. You don't get to decide what's best for Jennifer. I'm trying to make things right, and I won't let you ruin that. With a flick of his wrist, Tom dismissed Mark's words. Good luck with that, man. You'll need it. He turned and sauntered out of the cafe, laughter trailing behind him like a shadow. Jennifer felt the weight of his words, creeping into her mind like poison. Mark, what if he's right? What if you really haven't changed? Then I'll prove them all wrong, Mark replied, determination hardening his features. I'm not backing down this time. I love you too much to let this slip away. Her heart fluttered at his confession, but doubt still gnawed at her. But how do I know it's real? How do I know you won't go back to your old ways? I can't promise that everything will be easy, he said, his voice steady. But I can promise I'll do everything I can to show you I've changed. I'm willing to fight for us. Jennifer looked into his eyes, searching for the truth. Maybe I can give you one last chance. But I need you to be transparent with me. No secrets, no lies. Whatever you need, Jennifer. I'm all in, he said, extending his hand toward her. She hesitated for a moment, then reached out, her fingers brushing against his. In that moment, a flicker of hope ignited within her. As they left the cafe, the atmosphere outside felt charged with possibility. The sun dipped lower, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, mirroring the shift in their relationship. They walked side by side, their hands brushing against each other, tentative yet full of promise. Days turned into weeks, and the town began to notice the changes in both Mark and Jennifer. They were spotted together at community events, volunteering, and engaging with others in a way that showed their commitment to growth. However, whispers still lingered in the air, fueled by Tom's taunts and the memories of Mark's past. One evening, as Mark and Jennifer attended a community meeting, the tension in the room was palpable. Mark stood up to speak, his voice steady as he addressed the crowd. I know I have made mistakes in the past, and I can't erase the hurt I've caused. But I'm here today to tell you that I'm working hard to be a better person. I want to be a part of this community, and I hope you'll give me a chance. Jennifer watched as he spoke, pride swelling in her chest. She was torn between admiration for his courage and the fear of what could happen if he faltered. As the meeting progressed, a familiar face appeared, a figure from Mark's past who had once been a source of trouble. He stood at the back, arms crossed, and a smirk on his face. When he spoke, his voice dripped with sarcasm. So, Mark, you think we're all just supposed to forget who you are? You're still the same guy who caused chaos in this town. The murmurs of the crowd grew louder, and Jennifer felt a knot form in her stomach. Mark took a deep breath, his eyes narrowing. No, I'm not that person anymore. I'm here to make amends, not to relive the past. I won't let people like you define who I am. The tension escalated, and Jennifer felt her heart race. She stood up, her voice cutting through the noise. We all have a past, but it's how we choose to move forward that matters. Mark is trying to do that. We should support each other instead of tearing each other down." A ripple of surprise ran through the crowd at her outburst. Mark looked at her, his expression a mix of gratitude and admiration. The confrontation reached its peak when the man from Mark's past attempted to escalate the situation, but the community began to rally around Mark and Jennifer, sensing the sincerity in their words. As the meeting concluded, Mark turned to Jennifer, relief washing over him. "Thank you for standing by me. I couldn't have done that without you." Jennifer smiled, her heart swelling with hope. "I believe in you, Mark. I really do." In the following weeks, as Mark continued to engage with the community and demonstrate his commitment to change, the whispers began to fade. People started to see the man he was becoming, rather than the boy he once was. One evening, as they stood on the porch of Jennifer's home, watching the stars twinkle above, she turned to him, her heart full. "You've really come a long way, haven't you?" Mark smiled, his eyes reflecting the light of the stars. "I couldn't have done it without you. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself." "I was scared," Jennifer admitted. "But I realized that love is worth fighting for. It's worth the risk." Just as they were about to share a kiss, a loud crash interrupted them. It was Tom, stumbling up the driveway, his face flushed with anger. "You think you can just erase the past, Mark? You're still the same loser, and everyone knows it." Jennifer stepped forward, her voice unwavering. "Enough, Tom. You're only here to stir up trouble. We're done letting you dictate our lives." Mark, his jaw clenched, stepped beside her. "You're wrong about me, Tom. I'm not going back to who I was. I'm building a future, and you're not part of it." With that, the tension broke. The community had rallied around Mark and Jennifer, and Tom found himself isolated, his attempts to sabotage their relationship backfiring. In the days that followed, Tom's presence faded from their lives, and with it, the last remnants of doubt. As spring turned to summer, Mark and Jennifer's love flourished, igniting a passion that had been buried beneath layers of fear and uncertainty. They spent their days working on community projects, their nights wrapped in each other's arms, dreaming of a future together. One evening, as they walked hand in hand down the familiar streets of their small town, Mark stopped and turned to Jennifer. "I want to build a life with you. Will you take this journey with me?" Tears filled her eyes as she nodded. "Yes, I will. I believe in us, Mark." In that moment, under the stars that had witnessed their struggles, they sealed their commitment with a kiss, a promise that together, they could rewrite their story, leaving the past behind and embracing the future with open hearts.